Wind knifes down the mountain pass as a teenage girl stumbles along the icy shoulder, boots soaked through, cheeks raw and cracked from the cold. -10 degrees Celsius turns every breath into pain. Beside her, a German shepherd moves in perfect control, body angled between her and the road like a trained shield, not barking, not panicking, just watching every tire and every face. A line of cars crawls uphill behind a snowplow, and a small crowd is gathered at the turnout where the road narrows, phones raised, recording her like she is entertainment. A county utility truck blocks the shoulder. A man in a reflective jacket steps forward and snaps that she cannot be here, that she is trespassing on managed land. The girl's wrist is bruised. Her backpack strap is torn clean through. The dog sits instantly when she whispers one word, then rises again when a car fishtails and slides too close, ready but restrained. A dark pickup rolls to a stop. The driver, retired Navy SEAL Graham Mercer, takes in the bruise, the torn strap, the dog's disciplined posture, and the way nobody steps in. Then he hears the man say, "Take the dog first. If you were there, would you step in or keep driving? Tell me what you would do in the comments, and subscribe to Brave K9 Stories, because the moment Graham opens his door, the people behind that utility truck are going to make sure the girl does not leave this mountain." Graham steps out slowly with no wasted movement, boots planted firm on packed snow, palms visible, voice calm. He asks the utility worker what law he is enforcing and which agency sent him. The man, Wade Pritchard, dodges with practiced ease and points to a laminated clipboard notice like it is a badge. Graham's eyes catch the details instantly. It is not a county form. It is cheap laminate, crooked print, and a logo sticker that reads Ridgegate Development, slapped on top like a disguise. Elena flinches when Wade steps closer. Her shoulders tighten. The German shepherd shifts half a step forward, not lunging, not barking, just positioning his body between her and the man. Elena gives a low, steady heel. The dog returns to her left side immediately, tight and disciplined, as if he has done this 100 times. Graham asks Elena her name. The crowd leans in, hungry for drama. Elena hesitates, eyes darting to the phones, then answers, "Elena Ward." Wade snaps that she has been served and needs to leave the area immediately. He says it loud so everyone hears it, like public shame is the point. Then he reaches for the dog's collar with a quick grab, testing how far he can push. Elena says, "Sit." The dog sits instantly, eyes locked, ears forward, body still. Controlled, not submissive. Ready, not reckless. Graham's gaze drops to Elena's wrist. The bruising is shaped like fingers. Not a fall. Not an accident. He also notices a faint plastic band on the dog's collar, like a cut zip tie, the kind used to restrain. It tells a story without words. Someone tied this dog up recently, and the dog fought to stay calm anyway. A car horn blares. The crowd murmurs and shifts. Someone says, "Just give them the dog." Another voice adds, "This is private mountain property now." Phones keep filming, fingers tapping screens, people more worried about getting a clip than helping a cold kid. Graham takes off his gloves slowly, reaches out, and lifts the clipboard notice with 2 fingers, as if it might be contaminated. He reads every line. There is no seal. No case number, no signature anyone can verify. He asks Wade who signed it. Wade smirks and says, "Legal signed it." The answer is intentionally vague, meant to sound official while meaning nothing. Graham hands the notice back and keeps his voice even. Elena is coming with him to warm up. Wade steps sideways to block the pickup door line. He says Elena cannot leave until the sheriff arrives. Graham meets his eyes and says, "Then call him." "But she is not freezing here to satisfy your paperwork." Elena protests in a tight voice, saying she cannot go back to town. The words come out fast, fear breaking through her control. Graham tells her he is not taking her to town. He is going to his cabin, heat, food, and a place where she can feel her fingers again. After that, she can decide her next move with a clear head. Graham gives the dog a simple command, "Stay," while he opens the passenger door and lays a blanket across the seat. Elena whispers up. The German shepherd jumps in carefully, then pivots immediately to face the road through the window, posture rigid, like he is still on watch for the next threat. Wade threatens to call the sheriff again, louder this time for the phones. Graham nods once and says, "Do it." As he steps around to the driver's side, he notices Wade's phone case. Same Ridgegate logo sticker. Same cheap branding trying to pass as authority. As Graham drives off, he checks his mirror. A second vehicle pulls out behind them with headlights off, keeping distance in the snowfall like it knows the road. Graham's posture tightens. He does not tell Elena yet. He does not want her to panic. He just drives steady, controlled, and watchful, while the German Shepherd's head tracks the shadow behind them without a single sound. What the protagonist notices. The notice is amateur, not official. The crowd is performative, not concerned. Elena's bruise is from restraint. The dog's collar shows signs of forced tying. The follower vehicle moves like surveillance, not coincidence. Inside the cabin, warmth returns slowly. Graham keeps movements quiet and deliberate, placing dry gloves near the stove, setting a kettle on without asking questions that would corner her. He checks Elena's wrist with a light touch, not grabbing, just observing swelling and grip marks. He wraps it loosely with a clean bandage and hands her hot tea and a bowl of soup. The German Shepherd lies in a perfect downstay near the door, chin lifted, eyes open. Every gust of wind outside draws a small ear flick. Every distant engine makes his head tilt. Protection without noise. Elena explains in broken sentences that her stepmother, Candace Ward, forced her out after an argument about her father's land. Candace said Elena had no rights and that the dog was not hers, that everything now belonged to people who know how to manage it. Graham asks only one question, steady and direct: why the mountain road in -10? Elena answers that Candace's friend Wade drove her up there and told her to walk until she found somewhere else to be. No yelling. Just disposal. Graham decides they need supplies and a stronger phone signal than the cabin can get. He drives them toward Briar Hollow, hands loose on the wheel, scanning mirrors without making it obvious. The dog sits upright in the back seat, posture straight, watching passing headlights like they are checkpoints. The first stop in town is a diner that doubles as a general store. The bell over the door rings once. Conversations drop like switches flipped off. People look down at plates or at windows. A few younger men smirk openly. A woman near the register whispers, "That's Candace's girl," as if saying her name is risky. Elena feels it all at once, shoulders folding inward. The dog steps closer to her knee without being told, then freezes when she gives a soft down. Controlled, invisible, present. A server slides menus across the counter and makes a joke about runaways and dogs in public spaces. Elena's face flushes deep red. Graham stays polite, orders coffee and soup, and lets the room expose itself. No speeches, no confrontation. Silence becomes the loudest sound. Candace arrives like she was expecting this exact moment. Perfect coat, perfect hair, perfect smile that never reaches her eyes. Beside her stands Blake Voss from Ridgegate Development, smooth voice, branded jacket, a folder tucked under his arm like a badge. Candace laughs too loudly and calls Elena a thief. She says the dog is dangerous, unpredictable. Blake adds, calm and professional, that Ridgegate is handling the Ward estate and Elena is not authorized to interfere. He speaks like paperwork is law and law is already decided. Public pressure spikes, phones rise again. Someone asks if the dog bit anyone. The accusation floats in the air like a trap waiting to spring. Elena's hands tremble under the table. She whispers, "Sit." The German Shepherd sits instantly between her boots, steady as a wall. Graham asks Blake one simple question: what is Ridgegate doing with the Ward land? Blake answers with legal fog, phrases stacked on phrases about stewardship, safety corridors, emergency management zones. Words meant to overwhelm, not explain. Graham's eyes drift to Blake's folder. A small corner stamp reads, "Provisional transfer packet." The printed date is less than a month after Elena's father died. Too fast. Too clean. Too convenient. Candace leans close and hisses that Elena will be taken home tonight, whether she likes it or not. Elena's fingers tighten around the edge of the table. Graham scans the room. Nobody steps in. Nobody disagrees. Everyone acts like this humiliation is routine, like silence is civic duty. What the protagonist notices. The town acts trained to silence. Ridgegate uses public embarrassment to isolate. The transfer packet date suggests rushed paperwork. Candace and Ridgegate move like partners, not strangers. Outside the diner, tires crunch over frozen gravel as a marked patrol SUV rolls into the lot. The blue stripe along the door looks official, reassuring to the crowd, but the man who steps out carries hesitation in his shoulders. Deputy Miles Hargrove is young, eyes shadowed from long shifts, posture careful rather than commanding. He scans the scene once, and it is clear he is not measuring right and wrong. He is measuring who holds influence. Candace moves first, voice already raised, telling Miles Elena is a runaway and that Graham is harboring her. She says it with the confidence of someone who expects agreement. Blake follows smoothly, adding that Ridgegate has safety concerns about an unregistered working dog in a public place. The phrase is polished, rehearsed, designed to sound procedural instead of personal. Graham stays still, hands visible, tone even. He asks Miles a simple question: what exact statute is being applied? The deputy hesitates. His eyes flick to Blake, then to Candace, then down to his notepad. There is no clear answer. He shifts to de-escalation language, suggesting Elena return home for tonight and handle paperwork tomorrow. It is the language of avoidance, not resolution. Elena's breathing shortens. The dog rises without command, not lunging, not growling, just standing tall enough to exist as a barrier. Elena immediately says heel. The German Shepherd locks to her left leg with perfect precision, head forward, tail low but steady. Control over instinct. Training over fear. Graham leans slightly toward Elena and asks in a voice only she can hear if she feels safe going with Candace. Elena does not speak. Her eyes answer for her. They say no with absolute clarity. Graham slips his phone from his pocket without flourish. He angles it downward, thumb brushing the screen like he is checking the time. The recording begins quietly. He asks Candace to repeat what she said inside, about Elena having no rights and the land belonging to Ridgegate now. Candace repeats it with a smug half-laugh, louder this time, confident that public humiliation is protection. The words settle into the device as evidence, small but solid. Blake notices the movement. His expression tightens for a fraction of a second. He changes tone, accusing Graham of obstruction and escalation. Deputy Miles shifts his weight but does not stop the recording. He looks uncomfortable, like he knows something is wrong but is not ready to name it. Graham offers a compromise. Elena can go with Deputy Miles to a neutral safe place for the night, not back to Candace. Miles rubs the back of his neck and admits the station has no safe room and the nearest county shelter is an hour away through mountain roads that are icing over. The system shows its gaps without meaning to. Graham proposes his cabin again as temporary refuge. Miles says he cannot officially endorse that choice, but he also does not order Elena to leave. The absence of command becomes its own quiet permission. Candace reaches suddenly for Elena's arm, fingers curling like a claim of ownership. The dog steps between them in one smooth motion. No bark, no snap. Just presence. Elena says, "Sit." The dog sits instantly, body placed exactly where Candace's path would be, a living boundary that does not need teeth to be effective. Graham tells Candace, calm and level, not to touch her again. Candace's smile drops. She sneers that Elena is nothing and the dog will be put down soon anyway. The words land like threats disguised as predictions. Deputy Miles finally raises his voice and tells Candace to step back. It is a small act, barely louder than the wind, but it is the first time anyone wearing authority offers Elena even a fraction of protection. The crowd shifts, unsure now which way the power flows. As Graham guides Elena toward the truck, he notices a man near the fuel pump lifting his phone and taking a photo of the license plate. The man lowers it quickly, pretending to check messages. Graham says nothing, but he memorizes the jacket patch on the man's sleeve. Ridgegate. What the protagonist notices Deputy Miles is not corrupt in his bones, but he is pressured. Ridgegate operates like a shadow agency. Candace uses law enforcement as a threat more than a resource. Someone is logging plates and building a quiet file. At dusk, the mountain turns blue and silent, the kind of quiet that carries every small sound. Graham circles the cabin perimeter with deliberate steps, breath slow, eyes scanning the tree line rather than the ground. Near the shed, he finds a fresh footprint line pressed into the thin snow crust, not yet softened by wind. Beside it, a cigarette butt lies half buried, ash still intact, faint warmth lingering when he touches it with a gloved finger. Someone has been close. Recently. The German Shepherd follows on a soft heel, matching Graham's pace exactly. When Graham stops, the dog halts without command, ears forward. Graham whispers, "Stay." The dog freezes in place, muscles tight but controlled, gaze fixed on the darkening woods as if memorizing every shape. Inside, the stove crackles. Elena sits at the small table, hands wrapped around a mug she is not drinking. Her voice is thin when she speaks. She admits Candace's house has a basement room where the dog was tied whenever Elena misbehaved. Her father never allowed it. After he died, the rules changed overnight. Locks changed. Paperwork appeared, smiles turned into orders. The knock comes hard and rhythmic, not casual. Official in its cadence, like someone practiced it in a mirror. Graham's posture shifts instantly. He positions Elena behind the kitchen wall, out of direct sight, and tells her, "Stay here." He gives the dog a quiet down. The dog drops to the floor, head lifted, body coiled with silent tension. Graham opens the door a fraction. A private security contractor stands on the porch wearing a Ridgegate jacket, logo bright against the fading light. Wade is beside him, hands in pockets, smirk already formed. A third man holds a clipboard and a plastic lanyard with a badge-style card that reads, "Estate Compliance" in bold letters. The plastic gleams like authority, but it is just printed ink. They claim Elena is on private land, and Graham is interfering with estate management. Their voices are polite, rehearsed, and completely devoid of empathy. They demand Elena and the dog be turned over for transfer. The word is chosen carefully, sterile and final. Graham asks for a warrant. None appears. The man with the lanyard slides a paper forward, calling it a temporary custody order. Graham reads it without stepping aside. The judge's signature line is blank. The seal is photocopied. It is a costume pretending to be law. Elena hears Candace's name mentioned outside, and her breathing fractures. She whispers, "Stay," to the dog instinctively, like she is anchoring herself through him. The dog does not move. His paws tremble once, then settle, eyes sharp and unblinking. The security contractor leans forward, trying to peer past Graham's shoulder into the cabin. The dog releases a single low bark, one sound. Then silence. It is not aggression. It is a boundary spoken in a language that needs no translation. Graham's voice remains flat. He tells them to leave his property immediately. This time he holds his phone openly, camera steady, capturing faces, jackets, the fake badge, the blank line on the paper. Wade shrugs and says the town will make this hard for him. The lanyard man adds that the dog can be seized as an unlicensed working animal. Threats disguised as procedures. Graham answers, "You are not law enforcement. You are trespassing." Then he closes the door and locks it without raising his tone. Minutes later, a bright beam slices through the cabin window from the tree line. A spotlight sweeps the walls in slow arcs. Someone is signaling or marking. The dog moves to the window and stops, waiting. Graham says, "Watch." The dog fixes on the light source, silent and perfectly still, as if the darkness itself has edges. Elena finally breaks. Tears spill before she can hide them. She says they will never stop until she is alone. Graham kneels slightly so his voice meets her eye level and says, "Then we stop them first." Not loud, not heroic, just certain. Under the dim porch light, Graham crouches beside his truck and studies the small device fixed beneath the rear bumper. He removes it carefully, not ripping, not snapping wires, treating it like evidence rather than trash. Inside the cabin, he places it into a clear plastic bag, seals it, and photographs it beside a dated newspaper and his watch face. Time, location, proof. He tells Elena quietly that this is no longer just Candace being cruel. This is a network that expects obedience and punishes deviation. Elena sits still for a long moment, then remembers something her father used to say during their evening walks behind the property. He would stop near the creek and tap the ground with his boot, smiling in a way that was half joke and half warning. "If anyone ever tries to erase us," the creek remembers. She never understood what he meant. Now the words return like a key she had forgotten she owned. At dawn, the sky is pale and silent. Graham drives the back roads to avoid main traffic, tires whispering over frost. The German Shepherd rides upright until they reach the tree line, then steps out on a controlled heel. Graham scans the area, confirms no movement, then gives the command search. The dog lowers his nose and begins a measured grid pattern, slow and methodical, checking disturbed snow and scent trails instead of charging ahead. Training over impulse. The dog stops at a cluster of rocks where the snow has melted unevenly, like heat or recent movement disturbed it. He looks back at Graham, waiting. Graham says, "Show me." The dog paws once, deliberate, then steps aside. Beneath the rocks, Graham uncovers a sealed metal tube wrapped in plastic. Inside are folded papers, a handwritten letter, and a small thumb drive taped to the inner wall. Elena's father planned for this moment. The will copy names Elena as primary heir to the land. The executor line shows a local attorney's name scratched out and replaced in different ink. The letter is more personal and more urgent. Her father writes that Ridgegate had approached him twice, that he feared the town board could be bought, that if anything happened suddenly, Elena should trust the creek. The words are steady but tense, like he knew time was short. They do not return to Briar Hollow. Instead, Graham contacts a regional investigative reporter, Tessa Lang, arranging a meeting at a roadside motel in the next county, where Ridgegate influence is thinner. Tessa arrives with a laptop and a voice recorder, eyes sharp with the recognition of familiar patterns. She studies the will copy and the letter, cross-referencing dates. She explains that Ridgegate often targets problem properties, uses intimidation and rush transfers, then reroutes the land into development corridors that look legal on the surface. Elena's case fits the template almost perfectly. For a moment, the antagonists feel larger, heavier. Tessa shares that two recent witnesses who tried to expose Ridgegate had their reputations dismantled. One lost employment after sudden complaints. Another relocated after months of pressure and anonymous reports. Ridgegate does not need violence. It erases credibility instead. Deputy Miles calls Graham privately. His voice is lower than usual. Candace has filed a missing person report and labeled Elena mentally unstable. A county social worker has been notified. The system is preparing to intervene, not to protect Elena, but to control her narrative. The language is polite. The impact is sharp. Elena hears the phrase mentally unstable and her color drains. She whispers that maybe surrendering would stop the damage spreading to Graham. Her shoulders fold inward, fear shifting from physical danger to identity itself. Graham answers firmly but quietly. The truth is now tangible. They have documents, timestamps, and witnesses. They will move carefully, not loudly. What the protagonist notices: the will copy is authentic but altered. The thumb drive likely contains financial proof. Ridgegate's behavior matches a broader acquisition pattern, not a single dispute. Welfare language can be weaponized to discredit victims without direct force. They drive back toward Briar Hollow before sunrise, not to confront anyone, not to be seen, but to retrieve what Elena's father once called the real papers. The town still sleeps under thin blue light, storefronts dark, snowbanks untouched. Graham keeps his speed steady and his route indirect, turning down side roads that avoid cameras and main intersections. The dog sits upright in the back seat, posture rigid, watching every passing reflection like it is a moving checkpoint. They park far from the house and approach on foot through the tree line. Snow muffles their steps. Graham gives a quiet heel. The German Shepherd locks to his left leg. When a distant engine hum drifts across the neighborhood, Graham raises two fingers and whispers down. The dog drops instantly, body low but alert, nose testing the air. The house looks the same from a distance, but closer details are wrong. Curtain shifted, porch light bulb replaced. Footprints leading to the side door that are not Elena's. Graham studies entry points with the calm of someone who learned long ago that rushing creates noise. He is not here to take. He is here to recover Elena's property from a place that has been turned into a paperwork trap. Inside, Elena leads him to the pantry. Her hands shake as she slides a thin panel aside, revealing a narrow cabinet hidden between studs. "He kept everything here," she whispers. Graham nods once. The dog remains in a downstay near the back door, eyes fixed on the hallway, listening for changes in the house's breathing. They pull out a ledger first. Names, lot numbers, dates, amounts. Initials beside several entries match town officials. Elena recognizes from meetings she once attended with her father. Beneath the ledger sit deed packets and Ridgegate letterhead stamped provisional transfer packet, the same wording Blake carried like a weapon in the diner. Paper trails layered like sediment. Then, the near loss. Headlights sweep across the living room windows, cutting the darkness into sharp white bars. Elena's breath spikes. Graham moves without sound, guiding her behind the pantry wall with a flat palm. The dog hears the vehicle before the door handle turns. His ears lift. Graham whispers, "Stay." The dog remains still, not a single nail clicking against the floor. Two men enter through the front door. Wade's voice carries first, casual and confident. They talk about clearing the last holdout and the burn plan for an accidental cabin fire. The words land like ice water. They are not guessing. They are planning Graham's cabin specifically. One of the men drops a folded site map on the kitchen counter. Graham sees it from the narrow gap in the pantry panel. A rough diagram of the mountain road, the cabin circled in red, an arrow labeled access point. In the margin, two words written quickly, fuel staged. It is no longer speculation. It is scheduled destruction. Wade pauses suddenly, head tilting toward the back of the house. The dog's nose has caught a scent shift. He remains in downstay, but tension ripples through his shoulders. Graham whispers quiet. The dog stills even further, breath slowing. Graham realizes Wade might detect the dog's presence if he moves closer. Graham leans toward the doorframe and whispers back. The German Shepherd crawls backward only a few inches, sliding into deeper shadow while maintaining the down position. No scrape. No thump. Just a silent reposition that turns discovery into doubt. It is discipline used like a shield. The men leave after taking the main ledger, unaware a smaller compartment exists behind the cabinet frame. When their engine fades, Graham and Elena move quickly. Inside the hidden slot, they find a sealed envelope labeled Executor Correspondence. Printed emails detail rush transfers, and a receipt shows a notary stamp purchased the day after Elena's father died. Forgery compressed into 24 hours. They exit unseen, slipping back through the trees. Elena's hands shake not from cold now but realization. Graham tells her they are out of time. Ridgegate is not preparing paperwork. They are preparing fire. The patrol SUV idles with headlights flooding the snow in harsh white. Deputy Miles steps out slowly, door closing with a muted thud that feels heavier than it should. His face is tight, jaw clenched, eyes avoiding Elena for a second too long. He says there is an order to bring her in for her safety. Graham asks to see it. Miles exhales and admits it is verbal guidance from a county supervisor, not a judge. The words hang in the cold air like something unfinished and dangerous. Before Graham can respond, another vehicle rolls up behind the SUV with perfect timing. Blake Voss steps out, coat immaculate, expression calm enough to be insulting. Candace follows, arms folded, posture wounded and righteous at the same time. She tells Miles that Elena is unstable and dangerous, that she has been manipulated. Blake adds that the dog is a liability. Their voices overlap, polished and rehearsed, building a narrative rather than presenting facts. Then the hard boundary is crossed. Candace raises her voice so the entire street can hear. If Elena does not come now, she will press charges against Graham for kidnapping and demand the dog be euthanized as an aggressive animal. She says it with certainty, like it is a tool she has used before. The threat is not just legal, it is personal, precise, and meant to break Elena instantly. Elena folds inward, sobbing, hands shaking so hard she cannot keep them still. She whispers that she cannot lose the dog, not him too. The German Shepherd steps in close, shoulder touching her knee, body angled protectively but still waiting. No lunges. No bark. He looks to Graham for direction, trusting command over instinct. Graham lowers his voice and tells Elena to breathe. He gives the dog a firm sit. The dog sits immediately, posture straight, eyes alert but calm. Graham turns to Miles and begins laying out the evidence in clear, clipped sentences. The tracker under his truck. The fake custody paper video. The site map labeled fuel staged. He says they are planning a fire tonight, not paperwork, not warnings. Destruction. Miles hesitates, caught between procedure and the weight of what he is hearing. Blake pushes back smoothly, accusing Graham of exaggeration. Candace adds that Elena's father signed everything over willingly. The lies stack quickly, layered with confidence. It becomes harder for Miles to separate truth from volume. Graham commits fully. He takes out his phone and dials the state investigators and the county fire marshal in rapid succession. He puts Tessa on speaker and tells her to push the story live if anything happens to them. His voice does not rise, but the message is unmistakable. He is done negotiating quietly. Blake's composure cracks for a fraction of a second. He steps closer, leaning just enough that only Graham hears him. Your cabin will be ash before sunrise. Graham's thumb taps the record button without looking. The words land cleanly into memory and into the device, a verbal confession seed wrapped in arrogance. The dog stiffens, head turning toward the tree line. A low rumble vibrates from his chest, controlled and brief. Graham says watch. The dog locks his gaze into the darkness without moving his paws. A shadow shifts behind a trunk, then retreats. Someone was there. Someone listening. Surveillance confirmed. Miles finally draws a line. He tells Blake and Candace to step back and says he will escort Elena to the station temporarily while he verifies every claim himself. Blake protests, tone sharpening. Miles repeats, louder this time, step back. It is the first command he gives with conviction. As they reposition to leave, a faint orange flicker appears beyond the ridge, visible through the branches like a distant pulse. Graham's stomach drops. That glow is exactly where his cabin road bends around the hill. The air smells faintly different, like distant smoke carried by cold wind. Deputy Miles does not raise his voice or promise anything heroic. He simply keys his radio and calls it in the right way. Possible arson. Request county fire response. Request state fire investigator. Request backup from a neighboring jurisdiction due to potential local influence conflict. His tone is steady, professional, and precise. He is not trying to win a moment. He is building a chain of accountability that cannot be quietly erased. Graham insists they move toward the ridge immediately to confirm what that orange glow means. Miles agrees but says Elena stays with him, not alone, not wandering. Elena refuses to be separated from the dog, fear sharpening her voice. Graham answers without hesitation that the dog stays with Elena. That is not negotiable. Miles studies their faces for 1 second, then nods. Compromise built on trust instead of force. They move in a loose convoy, patrol SUV first, Graham's pickup behind. The road narrows as they climb, snow piled high along the edges, tires crunching through frozen ruts. Smoke becomes faint, but unmistakable, drifting across the treetops in thin gray ribbons that catch the headlights. At the cabin turnoff, they see it clearly. Fresh tire tracks cut across the snow toward the tree line. A Ridgegate utility truck sits half hidden with its lights off. 2 men stand near red fuel cans, frozen mid-motion when the patrol lights sweep over them. Their confidence collapses into stillness. Another vehicle appears behind the convoy too quickly. Blake steps out with a controlled smile, claiming they are checking a gas leak, that this is a misunderstanding. The words sound rehearsed, empty. Graham does not argue. He simply observes the placement of the cans, the wind direction, the distance between the truck and the cabin path. His skill reveals itself not through speeches, but through calm pattern recognition. He quietly tells Miles which direction the men will run if pressed, and where the terrain becomes too slick to chase. It is competence shaped by experience, not ego. Miles orders the men to step back from the fuel and keep their hands visible. One man panics and bolts toward the woods, boots slipping on ice. Miles starts after him but loses speed on the steep incline. The terrain turns the chase into risk. Graham looks at Elena, eyes steady. "If you trust him, give the command." Elena swallows hard, kneels slightly beside the German shepherd and says, "Coda, stay, then track." She points to the fleeing man's path and says, "Find." The dog launches forward in a straight, controlled sprint, not chaotic, not wild. His nose works the air and the ground, following the freshest trail carved into the snow. He angles ahead rather than behind, cutting distance with efficiency. When he reaches the man, he does not bite. He steps into the path, body squared, and releases short, firm barks that hold the man in place. When the man tries to push past, the dog snaps the air near the sleeve, a precise warning that stops movement without injury, necessity without aggression. Miles catches up seconds later and cuffs the man, breathing hard. He glances at the dog and says, "Good work," the way officers speak to partners who understand the job. Respect replaces earlier hesitation. Near the truck, Graham approaches the fuel staging area while Miles keeps watch. Graham opens his evidence bag and lays out the arson map, the tracker, and the audio recording where Blake's voice says, "The cabin will be ash before sunrise." Each item is simple on its own. Together, they form a pattern too strong to dismiss. Headlights appear on the main road as Tessa arrives with a small camera crew, keeping distance but recording everything. Public pressure flips instantly. Phones now point at Ridgegate employees instead of Elena. The narrative changes direction in real time. Candace arrives in a rush, voice sharp, calling Elena a liar. Elena steps forward holding the will copy and her father's letter with both hands. For the first time, her voice does not shake. She says she was forced out, that her dog was restrained, that anyone who helped her was threatened. The words land clearly, carried by microphones and winter air. Miles requests the will and letter as evidence and radios the county clerk for transfer packet verification. Blake protests that it is a civil matter. Miles answers calmly that planned arson and forged custody documents are criminal matters. The distinction cuts through Blake's composure. State fire investigators arrive within minutes because the call chain was triggered correctly. They examine the fuel placement, tire tracks, and the utility truck. They find accelerant residue near the staging area and a lighter in the console. Evidence moves from suspicion to confirmation. Under pressure, one Ridgegate worker admits they were told to send a message. Tessa's camera captures the statement. Candace lunges toward Elena in frustration, but the dog steps between them on instinct. Elena immediately says, "Sit," and the German shepherd sits, perfectly controlled, protection and obedience in the same breath. Consequences unfold realistically. Blake is detained for questioning. The utility truck is seized. The fleeing man is arrested. Candace receives a formal harassment warning and is ordered to keep distance pending investigation. It is not instant victory, but it is the first firm legal grip on Ridgegate's tactics. Snow continues to fall as the tension drains from the scene. Deputy Miles turns to Graham and says quietly that he should have listened sooner. Then he turns to Elena and tells her she is not going back to that house tonight. He offers contact with a victim advocate and writes the number himself. Procedure becomes care. Graham kneels beside the dog, checks his paws for ice, and the German shepherd leans into him for a brief second before returning to Elena's side. The bond between them is visible to everyone present. The same crowd that once watched in silence now looks away in embarrassment, their judgment replaced by recognition. In the days that follow, the story does not explode with instant victories or dramatic headlines. It unfolds slowly, like snow melting under steady sun. Tessa publishes a detailed investigation linking Ridgegate development to a chain of suspicious land transfers across neighboring towns. The thumb drive Elena's father hid contains email threads, payment confirmations, and time-stamped exchanges that align perfectly with the ledger initials. Patterns that once looked like coincidence now read like design. State authorities widen the inquiry beyond Briar Hollow, requesting financial audits and internal reviews that Ridgegate cannot quietly dismiss. Deputy Miles cooperates fully. He provides radio logs, incident reports, and documentation of the attempted safety pickup that carried no judicial authorization. He does not transform into a hero with speeches or public praise. Instead, he becomes something quieter and more important. A witness who refuses to be bent again. His statements carry weight because they are simple, consistent, and factual. Elena is not sent back to Candace. A county advocate arranges temporary safe housing with verified oversight, a small apartment near the courthouse where support workers check in daily. A legal aid attorney files immediate protective orders, citing unlawful restraint, intimidation threats, and the attempted arson plot. The paperwork moves through the system with deliberate speed, not rushed, but no longer ignored. Candace faces formal charges related to unlawful restraint and falsified custody claims. She is barred from contact while the estate dispute proceeds. Her confidence dissolves in the absence of control. Ridgegate's local operations are frozen pending investigation, and the county clerk's office begins auditing transfer packets, including the suspicious executor change on Elena's father's will copy. What once felt like an invisible machine now shows bolts and seams. Graham's cabin still stands at the edge of the mountain, unchanged in structure but altered in meaning. The porch light glows longer at night. The door stays unlocked during the day. Inside, Elena sits at the wooden table with hot tea and organized stacks of documents. Her voice grows steadier each time she speaks with the attorney. She no longer flinches at the sound of a car passing on the road. The quiet dog-human moment arrives without announcement. As Elena signs her first affidavit, the German Shepherd rests his head gently against her foot, weight warm and grounding. She pauses, fingers slipping into his fur, whispering, "Good boy," not as praise but as reassurance that he belongs. His tail thumps once against the floor, controlled and calm. When Graham steps into the room, the dog lifts his head immediately, posture shifting from comfort to readiness, loyalty expressed through attention rather than noise. Graham tells Elena she can stay as long as she needs, but he also encourages her to build a future that is hers and not just survival. Elena nods, saying she wants to finish school and protect her father's land legally, with knowledge instead of fear. The words come out clear, like she is claiming ownership of her own direction for the first time. Tessa visits again, not with cameras, not for another headline, but with printed copies of the first published story. Elena holds the pages carefully, reading her own name in bold letters. It feels less like publicity and more like proof that she exists in the open now, not hidden behind whispers. Graham stands on the porch one evening, watching the same mountain road where he first saw Elena walking through the cold. The snow has thinned. Tire tracks come and go. He realizes the hardest battle was never against weather or distance. It was against the collective decision to look away when looking closer might demand action. Silence feels safe until it becomes the shelter that injustice uses to grow.